I was 7 days away from what should have been the happiest day of my life. After 3 years with Amanda, our wedding was set at a beautiful lakeside resort, with 200 guests ready to celebrate our love. We had met at a friend's barbecue, connected instantly, and built what I thought was an unbreakable bond. But then came that text message, one text that shattered everything. Amanda had run off with another man, leaving me to pick up the pieces of our broken future and face everyone alone. 3 years later, she would show up at my door wanting something I never expected. Where are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments below. If you have experienced heartbreak or betrayal, this story might hit close to home. Go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of real-life stories. Now let me take you through my journey of heartbreak and unexpected redemption. The first time I saw Amanda was at my college friend Jake's summer barbecue. I was helping at the grill when she walked into the backyard, wearing a sundress, her brown hair falling past her shoulders, hazel eyes scanning the crowd. When our eyes met, I felt something shift inside me. Jake introduced us, and conversation flowed naturally between us. We talked about everything from our favorite movies to our career aspirations. Amanda worked at a marketing firm downtown while I was building my career as a software engineer. By the end of the night, I had her number and plans for dinner the following weekend. Our first date was at Antonio's, a small Italian restaurant with string lights and checkered tablecloths. I remember being nervous, changing shirts 3 times before leaving my apartment. All that nervousness disappeared the moment she smiled at me across the table. We closed down the restaurant that night, the staff practically having to usher us out. Over the next 6 months, we established a routine of weekly date nights. Every Friday, we would try a new restaurant, though we often ended up back at Antonio's. Amanda was passionate about photography, spending weekends capturing urban landscapes or nature scenes. I supported her talent, even buying her a new camera lens for her birthday. She showed equal interest in my coding projects, listening patiently as I explained technical challenges. When Amanda first met my parents, they adored her immediately. My mom pulled me aside to tell me she thought Amanda was the one. Her family welcomed me just as warmly. Her father, a retired teacher, enjoyed talking about books with me, while her mother always sent me home with containers of homemade food. After 6 months of dating, our lease agreements coincidentally ended around the same time. It seemed natural to find a place together, rather than renewing separately. We found a 1-bedroom apartment in a converted industrial building downtown, with exposed brick walls and large windows. The first night in our new home, we sat on the floor eating takeout, surrounded by unpacked boxes, planning our future together. A month after moving in together, we adopted Baxter, a scruffy terrier mix from the local shelter. He was timid at first, hiding under the bed for hours before venturing out. Amanda had the patience to win him over, sitting on the floor with treats, speaking softly until he trusted us. Baxter became our first shared responsibility, bringing us even closer. Our routines meshed well. I would take Baxter for morning walks while Amanda prepared breakfast. On weekends, we would explore different neighborhoods, Amanda photographing interesting architecture while I researched local restaurants for lunch. We talked about traveling the world together, starting with Hawaii for our first major vacation. 8 months into living together, we flew to Maui. I remember how Amanda gasped when she saw the ocean from our hotel room, grabbing her camera immediately. For 7 days, we hiked volcanic trails, snorkeled with sea turtles, and watched sunsets on the beach. One evening, as we sat on the sand with a bottle of wine between us, Amanda turned to me and said, "I want to spend my life with you." I felt the same way. Of course, we had disagreements. Amanda was spontaneous, often making last-minute plans, while I preferred having time to prepare. She would sometimes get frustrated with my need for structure. We argued about small things like household chores or managing finances. But these arguments always ended with compromise, and I believed they made our relationship stronger. We were learning to navigate life together, adjusting to each other's habits and quirks. After 2 years together, I decided to propose. I spent months planning, saving for the perfect ring, and coordinating with the staff at Antonio's, where we had our first date. The night of the proposal, I was a bundle of nerves. The ring box felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket all through dinner. When the dessert came out, the waiter had placed the ring on top of the tiramisu we always shared. Amanda's eyes widened when she saw it. I got down on one knee, my carefully prepared speech forgotten, as I simply asked, "Will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears as she nodded, saying, "Yes," over and over. The entire restaurant erupted in applause. We called our families from the restaurant, both sets of parents ecstatic about the news. That night felt perfect. A memory I would cherish even after everything that happened later. The engagement announcement on social media brought an outpouring of congratulations. Amanda wore her ring proudly, often catching herself staring at it throughout the day. We set the date for a year later, giving us plenty of time to plan the wedding of our dreams. The first few months of wedding planning were exciting. We toured venues before settling on Silver Lake Resort, with its stunning views and elegant reception hall. Amanda chose her sister Natalie as maid of honor, while my brother Tom would be my best man. We spent weekends tasting cakes, selecting flowers, and creating our guest list. As the wedding date approached, I noticed subtle changes in Amanda. She became more particular about details which I attributed to normal wedding stress. The guest list grew, as she insisted on inviting distant relatives and old friends. Our budget stretched thin, but I wanted to make her happy. We had a minor argument when I suggested scaling back, but Amanda insisted everything needed to be perfect. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs, but love had blinded me. 6 months before the wedding, Amanda started receiving phone calls that she would take in another room. When I asked, she would say they were wedding-related surprises or work calls. I trusted her, completely dismissing the occasional doubt that crept in. She took a week-long business trip to Asia, returning with exotic gifts but few details about her meetings. I never suspected she might have been with someone else. 3 months before the wedding, our save, the dates had gone out. Deposits paid to vendors, and Amanda had found her perfect dress. From the outside, everything was proceeding as planned, but Amanda had become distant, spending more evenings out with friends from work and less time engaged in our usual activities. The intimacy between us had diminished, but I convinced myself this was temporary, that after the wedding stress subsided, we would reconnect. 1 month before the wedding, my brother threw me a bachelor party. Nothing wild, just a weekend fishing trip with close friends. I cut it short when I could not reach Amanda for an entire day. Returning home, she acted as if nothing was wrong, claiming her phone had died during a marathon wedding planning session with her friends. I wanted to believe her. That was the last normal week we would have together. 7 days before our wedding, I noticed Amanda packing an unusually large suitcase for what she claimed was a final dress fitting and bachelorette weekend with her bridesmaids. I offered to drive her to her sister's house where they were meeting, but she insisted on taking a taxi. Our goodbye kiss felt perfunctory, but I attributed her distraction to pre-wedding nerves. The next morning, I texted her a simple, "Good morning, beautiful. Miss you." Hours passed without a response. By evening, concern had morphed into worry. I called Natalie, who seemed confused, saying the bachelorette party was not scheduled until the following weekend. A cold sensation settled in my stomach as I called Amanda repeatedly, each call going straight to voicemail. On the morning of the 5th day before our wedding, while getting ready for work, my phone chimed with a message from Amanda. My relief quickly turned to disbelief as I read, "Floyd, I cannot go through with the wedding. I have reconnected with someone from my past who I never truly got over. I am sorry to do this by text, but I could not face you. Please do not try to contact me. I will arrange for my remaining things to be collected. Amanda." I read the message 10 times, convinced it must be a cruel joke. I called her immediately, but the call went to voicemail. I called her parents, who sounded as shocked as I was, claiming they had no idea where she was. I called in sick to work and drove to her office, only to learn she had taken an indefinite leave of absence starting 3 days earlier. Returning to our apartment in a daze, I discovered Amanda had already removed most of her clothes and personal items while I was at work the previous day. On our bed lay a handwritten note that offered little more explanation than the text, "I never meant to hurt you. Please forgive me someday. You deserve someone who loves you completely." The betrayal cut deep, but the humiliation that followed was almost worse. I had to make dozens of painful calls to cancel vendors, contact guests, and return gifts. Each conversation required explaining that the wedding was off because my fiancée had left me for another man. Some people offered sympathy, others awkward silence. A few admitted they had seen Amanda with her ex-boyfriend around town in recent weeks, but had assumed it was innocent. Through social media, the truth emerged in pieces. Amanda had reconnected with her college boyfriend Mark 3 months earlier, when he returned to town after years abroad. What she had told me was a business trip to Asia had actually been a romantic getaway to Bali with him. Photos showed them on beaches at temples and candlelit dinners looking very much in love. The timestamps revealed she had been leading a double life for months. The most devastating revelation came from my brother Tom, who had a friend working at the courthouse. Amanda and Mark had filed for a marriage license 2 days after she left me. They had a private ceremony on what was supposed to be our wedding day. While 200 guests wondered why our wedding was suddenly canceled, Amanda was saying, "I do to someone else." I spiraled into depression, barely eating or sleeping. Friends worried as I withdrew from social activities and called in sick to work repeatedly. The apartment we had shared felt haunted by memories. Everywhere I looked reminded me of Amanda, from the coffee mug she always used to the prints of her photographs on the walls. Only Baxter provided comfort, staying close as if sensing my pain. My brother finally intervened after 2 weeks of watching me deteriorate. He helped me pack up Amanda's remaining belongings into boxes for her sister to collect. He stayed over for several days, making sure I ate, and helping me begin the process of canceling honeymoon reservations and joint accounts. The worst moment came when the wedding rings I had ordered arrived. I had chosen a matching set, having Amanda's custom designed to complement her engagement ring. The package arrived a week after she left, a cruel reminder of what should have been. I sat on the floor of our apartment, Baxter whimpering beside me, holding the small velvet boxes and finally allowing myself to cry without restraint. Friends attempted to help, inviting me out or bringing food, but I could barely engage. I questioned everything about our relationship. Had she ever truly loved me? Were there signs I missed? The doubt consumed me, making me replay every moment of our 3 years together, searching for clues that might have predicted this outcome. Her sister Natalie visited once, clearly uncomfortable, explaining that she had no idea about Mark until after Amanda left. She revealed that Amanda and Mark had dated for 4 years in college, before he moved to Singapore for work. Their breakup had devastated Amanda, who had described Mark as the one who got away to her sister many times. Hearing this only deepened my pain, realizing I had been a placeholder all along. Work became my only escape from constant thoughts of betrayal. After a month of reduced hours, I returned full-time, throwing myself into coding with an intensity that surprised my colleagues. I volunteered for extra projects, working late into the evenings, rather than returning to an empty apartment where memories waited to ambush me. Baxter became my anchor to reality. His needs forced me into a routine, taking him for walks, feeding him, and providing the care he depended on. On my darkest days, his presence beside me on the couch was the only comfort I could accept. He never asked questions or offered unwanted advice, just silent companionship that kept me from completely unraveling. The canceled wedding date came and went. I took the day off work, turned off my phone, and allowed myself 24 hours of unrestrained grief. Friends had offered to stay with me, but I needed to face it alone. I sat on the floor of what would have been our marital home, surrounded by reminders of Amanda, and finally accepted that the future I had planned no longer existed. The weeks following what should have been my wedding day blurred together in a haze of work, minimal sleep, and mechanical existence. I functioned rather than lived, going through motions without joy or purpose. Concerned friends tried to engage me, but I maintained a polite distance, not ready to rejoin the world of normal social interactions. 3 months after Amanda left, my lease was ending. The thought of renewing it, of continuing to live, surrounded by ghosts of our relationship, felt impossible. My brother suggested I find a new place, a fresh start, without memories embedded in every corner. After viewing several apartments, I found a smaller place across town with a tiny yard for Baxter. Moving day brought an unexpected sense of relief, as if physically leaving behind the space we had shared created room for healing to begin. The new apartment remained sparsely furnished for months. I bought only essentials, lacking energy or interest in creating a proper home. My brother and friends grew increasingly worried about my isolation. 6 months after the breakup, my friend Jake insisted I join a group therapy session for people dealing with relationship betrayal. I reluctantly agreed, mostly to stop his persistent requests. The first session was uncomfortable. Sitting in a circle with strangers expected to share my most painful experience felt invasive. I said little, listening as others described similar stories of betrayal. One woman's husband had left her for his secretary after 20 years of marriage. A young man discovered his girlfriend cheating with his roommate. Their pain mirrored mine, creating an unexpected sense of connection. By the third session, I found myself speaking the words pouring out easier than anticipated. Dr. Melissa, the therapist leading the group, suggested journal writing between sessions. The process of documenting my thoughts helped organize the chaos in my mind. Slowly, patterns emerged in my writing. I recognized how I had ignored warning signs, how I had compromised my own needs to accommodate Amanda's increasingly selfish demands. The journal became a space to acknowledge anger I had been suppressing beneath sadness. After 4 months of therapy, I began reconnecting with friends, accepting invitations I would have declined earlier. The first social gathering I attended was Jake's holiday party, almost a year after Amanda left. Being in the same space where we first met produced less pain than expected. I stayed only an hour, but considered it progress. My career became a positive focus during this period. The extra hours and dedication to work resulted in recognition from management. 14 months after the canceled wedding, I received a significant promotion, becoming team lead for a new project developing healthcare software. The increased responsibility provided purpose and direction when my personal life felt stagnant. Physical activity became another path toward healing. On Dr. Melissa's recommendation, I joined a hiking group that met weekly to explore local trails. The combination of exercise, nature, and casual social interaction provided a gentle re-entry into connecting with others. The group members knew nothing about my history with Amanda, allowing me to interact without pity or awkward questions. During a weekend hike 16 months after Amanda left, I found myself genuinely laughing at another hiker's joke. The realization that I could still experience spontaneous joy felt like a breakthrough. That evening, I removed the last photograph of Amanda from my wallet, placing it in a box with other mementos I was not ready to discard, but no longer needed to carry. 20 months after the breakup, my brother convinced me to join a community volunteer program, building homes for low-income families. The physical work of construction provided both exercise and the satisfaction of creating something tangible. During my third weekend volunteering, I met Ellie, an elementary school teacher who coordinated the program's educational outreach. Unlike the immediate attraction I had felt with Amanda, my connection with Ellie developed gradually. We worked alongside each other for several weekends, conversations focused on the project rather than personal matters. She was quietly competent, kind to everyone, and possessed a subtle sense of humor that emerged unexpectedly. When she suggested getting coffee after one particularly long workday, I accepted without the anxiety that had accompanied thoughts of dating again. Coffee led to dinner the following week. I found myself nervous, but not overwhelmed, sharing details about my work and hobbies, while deliberately avoiding mention of Amanda. Ellie talked about her fourth-grade students, her love of gardening, and her close relationship with her grandmother who had raised her. The evening ended with plans to meet again, no pressure or expectations beyond enjoying each other's company. After our third dinner together, I felt compelled to tell Ellie about Amanda. Sitting in her car outside my apartment, words tumbling out awkwardly, I explained why I might seem hesitant or guarded. Ellie listened without interruption, then simply said, "Thank you for trusting me with that." Her response, neither dismissive nor overly sympathetic, created space for honesty without defining our relationship through my past trauma. Our relationship progressed, slowly built on friendship and mutual respect. Ellie never pushed for more than I could give, somehow intuiting when I needed space or reassurance. She met my friends, gradually charming them with her genuine interest in their lives. When Baxter immediately took to her, curling against her leg during movie nights, it felt like an important endorsement. 2.5 years after Amanda left, I realized I had fallen in love with Ellie. The feeling differed from what I had experienced with Amanda, more steady and grounding than exciting and unpredictable. I trusted her completely, a trust built on consistent actions rather than dramatic declarations. For the first time, I began considering a future with someone new, no longer defined by past betrayal. We took a weekend trip to a coastal town Ellie loved from childhood visits. Walking along the beach at sunset, her hand in mine, I recognized how far I had come from the broken person I had been. That evening over dinner, I told Ellie I loved her for the first time. Her smile and quiet "I love you too" felt like closing one chapter of my life and beginning another. Returning to work after our weekend away, I was focused on a coding problem when our receptionist called to say I had a visitor. Assuming it was a delivery or colleague from another department, I was completely unprepared for who waited in the lobby. Amanda stood there looking both familiar and strange. Thinner than I remembered, her hair shorter, wearing a conservative dress instead of her usual artistic style. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. 3 years had passed since she walked out of my life, yet seeing her again compressed time, bringing back a rush of emotions I thought I had processed. "Floyd," she said, her voice smaller than I remembered. "Can we talk?" The conference room felt too small, with Amanda sitting across from me, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup I had reluctantly bought her from the cafe downstairs. Neither of us spoke for several uncomfortable minutes. She looked different, the confident woman I had known replaced by someone who seemed diminished, with dark circles under her eyes and a nervousness in her movements. "You look good," she finally said, breaking the silence. "Really good. Thanks," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "What brings you here, Amanda?" She explained she had moved back to town a month ago. Her marriage to Mark had ended after 2 years when she discovered he had been having multiple affairs. The man she had abandoned me for had ultimately betrayed her in the same way. The irony was not lost on me. "I made a terrible mistake, Floyd," she said, eyes filling with tears. "The biggest mistake of my life." As she spoke, I realized I was feeling something unexpected, nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction at her suffering, not lingering love. Just a strange emotional distance, as if she were a character in a movie rather than someone who had once been the center of my world. Amanda continued talking, alternating between apologies and reminiscing about the good times we had. She mentioned specific memories, vacations we had taken, private jokes we had shared. With each attempt to establish connection, I felt increasingly certain that whatever had once existed between us was truly gone. When Amanda reached across the table to touch my hand, I instinctively pulled back. Her expression shifted, becoming more direct, as she revealed her true purpose for seeking me out. "I need a fresh start, Floyd. Mark left me with nothing. The company I was working for in Seattle downsized, and I have been struggling to find something comparable here." She paused, gathering courage. "I heard you got promoted, that your company is growing. I was hoping maybe you could help me get a position. My marketing experience would be valuable to your team." The request was so unexpected I almost laughed. After everything she had sought me out for a job recommendation, part of me wanted to refuse immediately, to tell her exactly what I thought of her request. But the person I had become over the past 3 years was not driven by vengeance or bitterness. "You really hurt me, Amanda," I said quietly. "Not just by leaving, but by the way you left." A text message a week before our wedding after 3 years together. No real explanation. No chance for closure. Her eyes dropped to the table. "I know. I was a coward. I got caught up in the fantasy of Mark, this perfect love from my past. But it was just that, a fantasy. What we had was real, Floyd. I see that now." As she spoke, I briefly imagined an alternate reality where I welcomed her back, where her return offered the validation and closure I had once desperately craved. The thought lasted only seconds before I recognized it as the hollow fantasy it was. "I am seeing someone," I said firmly, "someone who makes me happy. I have moved on with my life, and I suggest you do the same." Amanda's expression hardened slightly, then softened into something that looked like resignation. "I understand, but about the job. Could you at least pass my resume along?" As a professional courtesy, I considered her request, weighing my lingering resentment against the person I wanted to be. "I can give your resume to HR, but that is all. No recommendation, no special treatment. They will evaluate you like any other candidate." Relief washed over her face. Thank you. That is all I ask." She slid a folder across the table containing her resume. As I took it, our fingers briefly touched the contact meaningless, where once it would have been electric. As we stood to leave, Amanda made one final attempt. Maybe we could get dinner sometime, just to catch up properly. As friends. "I do not think that would be appropriate," I replied, holding the door open. "I wish you well, Amanda, but I think it is best if we go our separate ways." Walking her to the building exit, I felt a growing certainty that this interaction was providing the true closure I had never received 3 years ago. Not because she had apologized, or because I had forgiven her, but because I recognized how completely I had moved beyond needing either of those things. That evening I met Ellie for dinner at our favorite restaurant, the events of the day weighing on me. As we settled at our table, I knew I needed to tell her about Amanda's unexpected visit. Our relationship had been built on honesty, and keeping this secret even briefly felt wrong. Something unusual happened today. I began explaining Amanda's appearance and her request. As I spoke, I watched Ellie, carefully unsure how she would respond to the news that my ex-fiancée had reappeared. Ellie listened thoughtfully, asking occasional questions, but mostly allowing me to share the experience uninterrupted. When I finished, she reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. "How do you feel about seeing her again?" she asked, her voice steady, but with an undercurrent of concern. "Mostly, I feel certain," I replied honestly. "Certain that chapter of my life is completely closed. Seeing her clarified that what I have with you is deeper and more real than what I had with her." Ellie's smile was small, but genuine. "I never doubted that, but I am glad the universe gave you that confirmation." Her response, free from jealousy or insecurity, reinforced what I already knew. This relationship was built on a foundation strong enough to withstand the echoes of past pain. That night, holding Ellie close as we fell asleep, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had led me to her, complicated as it had been. 2 months later, I encountered Amanda, unexpectedly, at a coffee shop downtown. She was with a man I did not recognize, laughing at something he said. She spotted me, hesitated, then offered a small wave. I nodded politely before continuing on my way, struck by my complete lack of emotional response. No jealousy, no regret, no lingering attachment. Just the neutral acknowledgement of someone who had once been important, but no longer held influence over my present or future. That evening, I opened the drawer where I had kept the engagement ring I had once bought for Amanda. It had remained there, a physical reminder of plans destroyed and promises broken. Taking it out, I realized it held no power over me anymore. The following day, I sold it to a jeweler, using the money to buy a simpler, more elegant ring that seemed perfectly suited to Ellie. 3 years and 2 months after Amanda had walked out of my life, I asked Ellie to marry me during a private moment while hiking our favorite trail. Unlike my elaborately planned proposal to Amanda, this one was spontaneous, prompted by the joy I felt simply being beside her. Ellie's yes was immediate, and certain, her arms wrapping around me, as Baxter circled us excitedly, somehow sensing the significance of the moment. Our wedding plans reflected the relationship we had built, thoughtful rather than showy, focused on meaning rather than appearance. We chose a small ceremony with only close friends and family to be held in the community garden, where we had spent many weekends volunteering together. As the wedding date approached, I experienced none of the anxiety that had marked the weeks before my planned wedding to Amanda. Instead, I felt a quiet certainty, a peaceful anticipation of officially beginning our life together. The difference was striking, highlighting how fundamentally different these relationships had been from the start. 2 weeks before our wedding, I received a text message from an unknown number. It was Amanda, having heard about my engagement through mutual acquaintances. "Congratulations," she wrote. "I hope you find all the happiness you deserve." I sent a simple thank you in response, appreciating the gesture, while recognizing it changed nothing. Standing under an arch of flowers with Ellie on our wedding day, exchanging vows we had written ourselves, I felt the final pieces of my past sliding away. The journey from devastation to this moment of pure joy had been longer and more difficult than I could have imagined when Amanda's text first shattered my world. But every step had been necessary to become the person who could fully appreciate the love I had found. 6 months after our wedding, Ellie shared the news that we were expecting our first child. Sitting together on our porch swing, planning for this new chapter in our lives, I reflected on how completely my definition of happiness had transformed. The painful end of my relationship with Amanda, which once seemed like the destruction of all my hopes, had ultimately been the beginning of a more authentic path. The journey from heartbreak to healing was neither quick nor easy. When Amanda broke my heart with that text message, I never imagined I would someday be grateful for the pain she caused. But looking back, I see how that devastating experience forced me to rebuild myself into someone stronger, more self-aware, and capable of a deeper love than I had known before. I learned that sometimes rejection is protection. What felt like the worst moment of my life was actually saving me from a marriage with someone who could abandon our commitment so easily. The universe was redirecting me, though I could not see it through my tears at the time. With Ellie, I found what genuine partnership feels like, built on consistent actions rather than fleeting emotions. Our love grows from mutual respect and shared values, not the roller coaster intensity I once mistook for passion. When our daughter Maya was born last month, the circle of healing felt complete. My heart now filled with a love I never knew was possible. The most profound lesson came when Amanda reappeared, seeking to re-enter my life. In that moment, I recognized my own growth, not through anger or vindictiveness, but through the peaceful certainty that I had moved beyond needing anything from her, even closure. True healing is not about getting even or receiving apologies, but about reaching a place where those things no longer matter. If you are in the midst of heartbreak right now, please know that the pain will not last forever. The path forward exists even when you cannot see it. Be gentle with yourself. Allow the grief its space, but keep taking small steps forward. The person who betrayed you does not define your worth or your capacity for future happiness. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led you to something better? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is struggling. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to hear more journeys of overcoming life's challenges. And remember to share this video with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible even after the most painful betrayals. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength and peace on your own journey, whatever obstacles you may face.